All right, we are going to start our first exercise in blending, or sometimes it's referred to as shading. So we have these value cards, and the first one we're going to take a 9 by 12 smaller sheet of paper, and you're going to put one of the value cards down like this, kind of center it in the middle of the paper. And then all I want you to do is you're going to outline and go around that card, and you're making a square like this. All right, then I'm going to have this card here. The next step is to lightly sketch the contours of the card. And you want to really look at the card to get your contours. Now, if you look, there's a black border. You're going to make this and enlarge it and make it a little bit bigger so it fills this entire square. So you're not drawing the black border. So as I look, if I were to divide from here to here in half, this is the halfway point, and then the halfway from here to here is like here. So it gives you kind of sometimes an idea of where things line up. The halfway point here is almost the edge of that finger comes a little bit past that halfway point. So hopefully that'll help you kind of get some of your proportions correct. So like if I was dividing it halfway here. All right, this side here, let me move this over here, of the hand kind of comes here, and then it curves down. And let's see, halfway is here, the quarter point is where that finger kind of comes. And I know you can't see my eyes, but I am doing a lot of looking at the card, then looking at my paper, looking at the card, then looking at my paper to get proportions correct. And I'm really lightly sketching the contours. You don't want to press so hard that you're carving into the paper, because if you make a mistake, if you kind of press really hard and carve into the paper, it's hard to erase. All right, and then about the quarter point here is where this other kind of the darker shadow of that knuckle comes. Okay, then we see the fingernail here. And then back behind, I think this is somebody holding a worm. Some of these cards, you can't even really tell what they are, and that's okay. What we're really looking and focusing in on is the different shades of gray when we're going to start our blending or shading. And if I look at, this is about the quarter point. So here's the halfway, quarter point. So I know the side of the face is going to come about right here. It kind of comes up right there. And then she's got kind of these darker circles around her face that I'm going to sketch in. And I'm looking, it's a little bit lighter here. So I'm going to sketch that in. So as I look at this, some of the darkest spots are this upper corner right here, and I'm going to use what's called an ebony pencil. And the ebony pencils, you can get really rich, dark areas. You only want to use this for the dark areas. You don't want to use this to do the contour lines because you forgot your pencil, because the ebony pencils are really hard to erase. So keep that in mind as you're using them. Also, please do not use the electric pencil sharpeners with the ebony pencils, otherwise it grinds them down. So use the crank pencil sharpeners when you're using ebony pencils. So it's really dark in this corner, so I'm pressing somewhat hard. And then it gets lighter, so I'm going to let up on my pencil pressure. So you're really observing the different shades of gray in this card, and really looking at all those different spots. Make sure you're not outlining it like a coloring book and then trying to fill it in. Your shading should show the shape. That's why when you sketch in those contours, it should be really light so that your shading shows the shape. All right, this bottom corner is a little bit lighter, so I'm going to let up on my pencil pressure down here. And then as I go up towards the top, it starts to gradually get darker. So now I'm pressing a little bit harder as I go up, so that when I get up here towards the top, it's darker. Value. Remember, value is your lightness to darkness of a color. That's one of your elements of art. All right, now as I look at this kind of shadow, and it's her hair here, I can tell. I'm going to use my ebony pencil because right here it's a little bit darker down here. So you can see a slight difference in the colors here. And as I go up, it stays pretty dark. And there's a point here where right here, the values are pretty similar. All right, I'm just going to turn this a little bit upside down here so I can get this. And it gets a little bit lighter So I'm going to let up on my pencil pressure here. All right. As I look at this hand, one thing I want you to do, a lot of people say, oh, that's white like the paper. If you compare it to the paper, it is not the same color. It is a light shade of gray, so you need to show that. Otherwise, your shading isn't going to work. So I'm really lightly, notice I'm holding my pencil up a little bit higher so I can get a light shade of gray here. It's a little bit darker where that finger is, so I'm going to show that. And then as it comes around here, then we've got right here, I'm using my regular pencil. It's somewhat dark, but not as dark as the ebony. So I'm going to press harder to create that shadow. Then it gets a little bit lighter coming up. So I'm going to let up on my pencil pressure. But you can see how the shape here of that bent finger kind of starts to happen through my shading. All right, then it's lighter over here, but by shading this, I'm starting to get the shape of that finger. And if you look here, there's like a line right here, right under the fingertip. So I'm hardly pressing, just laying down some color to a light gray. You should have a wide variety of different gray colors. You shouldn't have just one or two colors. Okay, and then underneath that's an even lighter gray. So now I'm going to let up even more on my pencil pressure. Okay, and lay down some of that color in that area. Then as I look at the eye socket around the eye here, it's darker. I'm going to come back with my ebony pencil. And it's really dark right here. And then as I go up towards the top of the eye socket, it starts to get lighter. So you're going to finish this one practice one, and then on a bigger sheet of paper, you're going to do 6 additional value cards that you are going to hand in. So you're doing one practice and then 6 additional where you're going to really work on looking at all the different shades of gray as you begin shading. So kind of that's our next step with the value cards.